Ukraine from the US Embassy, according to an official statement. The United Kingdom has issued new travel advice for citizens traveling to the US amid President Trump's immigration crackdown. US tech companies are pushing back against India's stringent approach to online speech. In fact, Elon Musk's social media platform X has taken it up with the Indian government over what it described as a rash of takedown orders that equated censorship. The Information and Tech Ministry says it's looking into the matter. US President Donald Trump has signed an executive order to begin dismantling the Department of Education and reassigning its functions to states instead. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer is focusing a post-war European military guarantee for Ukraine on air and sea support, moving away from his previous priority of securing troops on the ground to enforce any peace deal with Russia, as per reports. And our big focus, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney will trigger an early election this weekend for an expected vote on the 28th of April, as per reports. Now, do remember, this is against the backdrop of a trade war and sovereignty threats from US President Donald Trump. But this quick election announcement reflects Carney's wish to capitalize on a polling surge for his Liberal Party, driven in large by the US tariffs and Trump's unprecedented and repeated statements that Canada should not remain an independent country. Do note that at the start of this year, just before Trump took office, Liberals had appeared headed for an electoral wipeout, with the opposition Conservatives on track to form the next government, as we had reported extensively on NDTV as well. But now Mark Carney has triggered an early election, as per reports. This weekend, he's going to make that announcement on Sunday for an expected vote on the 28th of April. And as I mentioned, you cannot ignore the backdrop of the trade war and sovereignty threats from the US president at this point. This quick election announcement reflects Mark Carney's wish to capitalize on a polling surge for his Liberal Party that was driven in large part by the US tariffs and also Trump's repeated statements that Canada should not remain an independent country. My colleague Vishal Vivek has been tracking the finer details for us. He joins us over the phone line at the moment. Vishal, so reports state that the new Canadian Prime Minister is expected to call for an April 28th snap election?
Well, that is correct. That is what the local reports in Canadian media has been saying for the last 12 hours or so. But it remains to be seen whether it is actually April 28th or May 5th. Some reports are also saying May 5th, but it most likely looks that April 28th will be the date when Canada will finally go to polls. It will be a snap poll because it was not expected to be held so soon. There has been an upheaval in Canadian politics in the last 1 year or so. We've been reporting all the final details. PM Justin Trudeau had to go a step down unceremoniously to speak about it, and then Mark Carney stepped in, and he has not really had that much of an experience as a politician. He only took up the role of a politician just a few years ago. 2021 was the year, and he's been directly appointed as the PM. So it will be a challenge for him the next few months. And if there have been in the last few months some points gained by the ruling party, and the Conservatives have lost that big lead that they had a few months ago. So all of that will come into the picture.
Right. Thanks so much, Vishal, as always, for joining us with that update. We also have with us live from Vancouver at the moment, Maha Siddiqui. Maha, as always, thank you so much for joining us. We're hearing that it's between the April 28th and May 5th. There seems to be both those dates coming up as per reports. But take us through the latest from ground zero.
That's correct. In fact, what Mark Carney is expected to do is capitalize on the remarkable comeback that the Liberals have made ever since the threats from Donald Trump with regards to tariffs as well as the annexation threat. And at this particular juncture, the Liberals are neck and neck with the Conservatives. And this is there is no historical parallel that really can be found to this kind of a comeback that the Liberals have seen within a couple of weeks. And therefore, it is expected that by this weekend, Mark Carney is going to say that he is asking for fresh elections to be held.
Right, we seem to have some trouble connecting with Maha at the moment, but as my colleagues Maha Siddiqui and Vishal Vivek are reporting, Canada is expected to go to polls on the 28th of April, as many reports highlight. We will, of course, get you the latest as and when we have an official confirmation. The other big story we're tracking, Ukraine and Russia are expected to hold talks with US officials in Saudi Arabia next week. So Ukraine will have a delegation in Riyadh. On the same day, the US is holding ceasefire talks there with a Russian negotiating team that's led by a secretive former FSB chief who played a key role in planning Vladimir Putin's 2022 full-scale invasion. Ray Locker is with us for further clarity at the moment. Ray, thanks so much for making time for us. Considering Zelensky has accused Russia of making unnecessary demands that will actually drag out this war, are you optimistic about the meetings that are expected to take place on Monday?
No, I'm not optimistic about any meeting until we have the final meeting where some kind of peace treaty is signed between Zelensky and Putin. Everything up until then is just a lot of talk and conjecture.
Ray, there is also some confusion over what exactly Trump and Putin had agreed on after Moscow and Washington gave different readouts following Trump and Putin's phone call. So how do you actually read this current situation?
Well, this is nothing new for Donald Trump. During his first term, he stopped giving readouts because they were often almost directly opposed to what the other side was saying. And so you don't really know what he's talking about because, look, this is a president who told more than 30,000 lies during his first term in office, and he's doing more of the same now. So we won't really know what happens until it really happens.
Well, we will, of course, hope for the best. There is still uncertainty over the timing in terms of a limited US brokered ceasefire that was agreed this week. As we know, both countries have been exchanging aerial assaults overnight. Thanks so much, Ray. We will, of course, revert to you for regular updates. Well, the other crucial story we're tracking on NDTV, the Delhi Police Crime Branch has registered an FIR against several visa and passport agents, primarily operating from Haryana and Punjab, following a complaint from the US Embassy. Now, according to an official statement, the complaint states that these agents, some known and some unknown, were involved in submitting false information in US visa applications and also providing fake documents to applicants. So according to the statement, the US Embassy has named more than 30 visa and passport agents, along with passengers who allegedly tried to obtain US visas using these fake documents. A case has been registered under different sections of the BNS and also Section 66D of the Information Tech Act. The Delhi Police Crime Branch is now investigating this matter. Mohammed Ghazali joins us with a quick update at the moment. Ghazali, what details can you disclose to our viewers?
See, the embassy had filed this complaint on Feb 27 last month, and saying that the fraudulent activities took place between May and August 2024, where the embassy highlighted around 21 such instances of conspiracy between agents and applicants to cheat the U.S. government. And this comes at a time when the U.S. government under President Donald Trump has been cracking down on visa fraud and unlawful immigration. And the U.S. Embassy has also named around 31 accused, including visa agents and applicants who have been involved in forging documents such as bank statements, educational certificates, and employment records to obtain U.S. visas. And it is very well known that how these immigration agents, not just in Punjab and Haryana, but other states, also tutor the applicants before applying for the visa.
Yes.
And most of these applicants, after attending the visa interview, their entire modus operandi bursts there when the visa interviews start probing about their educational background, about their bank statements. And that is when the U.S. officials or the embassy officials got to know that how they have been tutored and they have been submitting wrong information to apply for visa.
Ghazali, as always, thank you so much for joining us with the lowdown. Well, switching tracks, Britain has updated its advice for citizens traveling to the US, warning them they face arrest or detention. Travel advice issued by the Foreign Office now stresses that the US strictly upholds entry rules and that those who do not abide by them could be detained. It is unclear when the British government updated its travel advice, but it comes as the Trump administration is tightening its enforcement of immigration rules. Earlier guidance that was in place in February read simply that the authorities in the US set and enforce entry rules. staying with updates from Britain, well, the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer is focusing a post-war European military guarantee for Ukraine on air and sea support, moving away from his previous priority of securing troops on the ground to enforce any peace deal with Russia, as per reports. In fact, Mr. Starmer has said we're looking at sea in one scenario, the sky obviously, land and borders and regeneration. This is what he told a meeting of military planners from the so-called Coalition of the Willing of Nations that are in talks to provide security guarantees to Kyiv. Let's turn our attention now to the United States, where a federal judge ordered President Donald Trump's administration not to deport Badr Khan Suri, who's an Indian man studying at Washington's Georgetown University, whose lawyer has said that the United States was seeking to remove him after it accused him of harming U.S. foreign policy. The order is set to remain in effect until lifted by the court, according to a 3-paragraph order by the U.S. District Judge Patricia Giles in Virginia. But Mr. Suri is living in the U.S. on a student visa. I can inform you that he's married to an American citizen and has been detained in Louisiana, according to his lawyer. And in terms of what the Department of Homeland Security in the U.S. had to say, well, they've accused Badr Khan Suri of ties to the Palestinian militant group Hamas and said he had spread Hamas propaganda as well as anti-Semitism on social media. Meanwhile, at least 91 Palestinians were killed and dozens injured in Israeli airstrikes across Gaza after Israel resumed its bombing campaign and ground operations in the territory. Hamas, by the way, which had not yet retaliated during the first 48 hours of the renewed Israeli assault, they have said its armed wing had fired rockets into Israel. By the way, US President Donald Trump said he has a very good relationship with India, but he added, the only problem he has with India is that it's one of the highest tariffing nations in the world. Trump reiterated his threat to impose reciprocal US tariffs on India starting the 2nd of April. And the US president has repeatedly criticized the high tariffs charged by India. He has said that India is a very high tariff nation and reiterated that reciprocal tariffs on countries that impose levies on American goods will kick in next month on the 2nd of April. As you know, in the past, Donald Trump has called India tariff king and also a big abuser. Well, on home ground, social media giant X, owned by US billionaire Elon Musk, has filed a lawsuit in the Karnataka High Court against the Indian government, challenging what it calls unlawful content regulation and arbitrary censorship. It raised concerns over the centre's interpretation of the Information Technology Act, particularly its use of Section 79(3)(b), which X argues violates Supreme Court rulings and undermines free expression online. The lawsuit alleges that the government is using the section to create a parallel content blocking mechanism, bypassing the structured legal process that's outlined in Section 69A. Vishnu Shom breaks down the details for you.
The ongoing tension between X, the social media platform owned by Elon Musk, and the government of India primarily centers around content moderation, namely censorship and regulatory oversight. Now, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, or METI as it's known, has been scrutinizing X over the behavior of Grok. That's an artificial intelligence or AI chatbot. Now, reports indicate that Grok has been generating controversial responses, including the use of Hindi slang and expletives, as well as inflammatory comments about political figures like the Prime Minister. Separately, X has filed a petition today in the Karnataka High Court challenging the government's use of Section 79(3)(b) of the IT Act to take down online content. Remember this, Section 79(3)(b), because I'll be explaining that. Now, X also objects to the creation of the Sahyog portal, a site where complaints can be lodged against X. So X argues that the government's application of Section 79(3)(b), which I was referring to, and also the Sahyog portal, which I mentioned, creates, and I quote, an unlawful and unregulated censorship mechanism that bypasses statutory safeguards. Now, the government counters that argument of X and argues that 79(3)(b) of the IT Act does empower it to notify intermediaries like X to remove unlawful content quickly and effectively. X says that content blocking should only occur under another section, Section 69A of the IT Act, which it says provides a structured process, including judicial oversight, written reasons and opportunities for appeal, safeguards which X says are being ignored under the current practice. Now, the government counters this and says that Section 79(3)(b), which the government endorses, explicitly states that intermediaries lose their immunity. So an intermediary here refers to X. They lose their immunity if they fail to act upon government notifications of unlawful content. The government argues Section 79(3)(b) is not dependent on the section which Twitter or X is referring to, which is Section 69(8). The government says that they are separate. So the bigger question, why would the government want to do this? Why? Because the government feels that it needs the power to curb misinformation, lawlessness, and threats to public order, especially on platforms like X.
Meanwhile, you must know that Donald Trump signed an executive order that instructs the U.S. Education Secretary to start dismantling the Department of Education, seemingly attempting to circumvent the need to obtain congressional approval to formally close the federal department. The administration may eventually pursue an effort to actually get Congress to shut down the agency, Trump said at a signing ceremony at the White House, because its budget had more than doubled in size in recent years, but national test scores had not improved. The federal government does not mandate curriculums in schools. That has actually been the responsibility of state and local governments, which provide 90% of the funding to schools. But nevertheless, at the White House, Trump repeated his campaign promise to send education back to the states. Listen in.
We're going to be returning education very simply back to the states where it belongs, and this is a very popular thing to do, but much more importantly, it's a common sense thing to do, and it's going to work. Absolutely, it's going to work, and I can tell you from dealing with the governors and others in the state, they want it so badly. They want to take their children back and really teach their children individually.
As always, news and updates continue in a moment right after this very short break. Do stay tuned.
लोन मिलेगा या नहीं ये आपके क्रेडिट स्कोर पे डिपेंड करता है। तो आज ही अपना क्रेडिट स्कोर चेक करें फ्री में पैसाबाजार.com पर। लोन की जरूरत कभी भी किसी को भी पड़ सकती है।
ठीक से
एक्टिंग नहीं।
पैसाबाजार.com।
I've been reporting on all issues, big and small, from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of Maximum City is infectious. I bring in that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti is also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
लोन मिलेगा या नहीं ये आपके क्रेडिट स्कोर पे डिपेंड करता है। तो आज ही पैसाबाजार.com पर जाइए और अपना क्रेडिट स्कोर चेक कीजिए फ्री में, क्योंकि लोन की जरूरत कभी भी किसी को भी पड़ सकती है।
बस एक्टिंग करा लो इनसे।
पैसाबाजार.com, क्रेडिट स्कोर चेक, आदत अच्छी है।
One of your primary concerns and one of your primary responsibilities is to deal with the threat of terror. And at the moment, we see a great deal of that out of Yemen. We see attacks on shipping taking place, and we see the United States being very much on the offensive. Is that a prelude for something larger, perhaps even a ground offensive going forward?
I mean, you look at President Trump's leadership going back through his first term as president, he has been and remains very committed to combating and defeating the threat of Islamist terrorism that not only affects the United States, the American people, our own safety and security, but it is affecting so many people in different parts of the world. We can see different terrorist groups, the Houthis in Yemen being one of them, that President Trump has redesignated after President Biden took them off of the terrorist list, redesignated them appropriately as a terrorist organization, and taking action where the previous administration failed to.
Right.
The Houthis have been disrupting maritime trade and passage for a very long time, and no serious effort has been taken to stop that disruption. Our country and other countries should not be in a position to have to make a decision to reroute commerce going through that area simply because of the Houthi threat that exists. So President Trump has taken decisive action for our own safety, security, and prosperity. And I know we'll look to other affected countries, as there are many who are impacted by this, to similarly take action.
लोन मिलेगा या नहीं, ये आपके क्रेडिट स्कोर पे डिपेंड करता है। आज ही जाइए पैसाबाजार.com पर और अपना क्रेडिट स्कोर चेक कीजिए फ्री में, क्योंकि लोन की जरूरत किसी को भी कभी भी पड़ सकती है।
चल एक्टिंग थोड़ा भेल बनो।
ये आया बात पैसाबाजार.com।
Two months in Oval Office, Trump's peace promises in peril. Can Badr Khan Suri's Hamas links be Trump's yardstick to deport all Indian students? As bilateral ties improve, what's the roadmap for India-China relationship?
A quick update from the UK now, where the House of Lords was disrupted by a shower of leaflets, actually. Protesters chanting "Lords out, people in" from the gallery above the Lords chamber led to a pause in proceedings. The protesters say they were acting on behalf of Assemble, which is an organization that campaigns for the Lords to be abolished and replaced by a Citizens' Assembly, but visuals of the House of Lords being disrupted with a shower of leaflets. With that, let's turn our attention now to Turkey, where protests have escalated the arrest of one of President Erdogan's top rivals. The Istanbul mayor was detained in a sweeping operation along with 100 others, days before he was set to be named as a presidential candidate, a move that entered Erdogan's grip on Turkey's political landscape. Now, some analysts argue Erdogan may have been emboldened by US President Donald Trump, basically arguing that Trump has created such chaos that foreign autocrats sense they can do whatever they want. And finally, Kirsty Coventry has been elected president of the International Olympic Committee, becoming the first woman and first African in the committee's 130-year-old history to get the job. Now, the swimmer, a two-time Olympic gold medalist, won 49 of the 97 votes of the IOC membership in the first round of voting.
This is an extraordinary moment. As a 9-year-old girl, I never thought that I would be standing up here one day, getting to give back to this incredible movement of ours. This is not just a huge honor, but it is a reminder of my commitment to every single one of you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And now we've got some work together.
On that note, have an incredible Friday. As always, we'll keep tracking the latest updates for you. Do stay tuned.
लोन मिलेगा या नहीं, ये आपके क्रेडिट स्कोर पे डिपेंड करता है। तो आज ही अपना क्रेडिट स्कोर चेक करें फ्री में पैसाबाजार.com पर। लोन की जरूरत कभी भी किसी को भी पड़ सकती है।
ठीक से एक्टिंग नहीं।
पैसाबाजार.com।
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
लोन मिलेगा या नहीं, ये आपके क्रेडिट स्कोर पे डिपेंड करता है। तो आज ही पैसाबाजार.com पर जाइए और अपना क्रेडिट स्कोर चेक कीजिए फ्री में, क्योंकि लोन की जरूरत कभी भी किसी को भी पड़ सकती है।
बस एक्टिंग करा लो इनसे।
पैसाबाजार.com, क्रेडिट स्कोर चेक, आदत अच्छी है।
News is not just headlines, it is what impacts you. And news should never be missed.